biohacking, performance, mastery, mindset, holistic health. This is a show about getting better every single day. I'm on a mission, guys, to help over 1 million people get healthy and lose weight. Why? Because when you lose weight and get healthy, you have higher self-esteem. You have more self-confidence. And that person goes out and crushes their goal and starts living the highest version of themselves, and then they have way more impact on the world. All right, what's up, guys? Happy Wednesday, happy hump day. I hope everybody had an amazing 4th of July. I know that I did, and I'm actually getting ready to go on a camping trip this weekend. So I am, this is going to be like a light week, but without saying even that, it's not going to be a light week, because today we're going to go over some really good stuff, some cutting edge research talking about fast food addiction, junk food addiction. If any of you have that issue, we are going to nip that in the butt today. You're going to learn all about that. You're going to learn the why. You're going to learn behind what is really happening and why are we so addicted to these foods, and why do I overeat? Why do I binge eat? I've got some amazing podcast episodes with some really smart people, way smarter than me, and they're going to talk about that too. But I'm going to give you just some things to think about and really why you are overeating. And we're going to get into that. Before I do, just a quick announcement. Anybody who's looking for one-on-one health coaching and you want to take your health to the next level in 2022, the year is halfway over, guys. We're there. It's July 6th. So if you're looking at making some changes, if you're looking at maybe detoxing, there's some gut health issues, or you're looking at weight loss. I've helped over 60 people in the last 6 months lose weight and keep it off in a holistic way. So if you're looking at doing that and you want to move the needle, I'm really happy to help, and let's connect. Shoot me an email, info@joelevancoaching, or just reach out to me on Instagram at joelevancoaching.com. I'm getting a lot of people coming through my Facebook, on my website at www.joelevancoaching.com. Folks can actually shoot me DMs via Instagram Facebook Messenger. I don't always get those. So, sorry, I don't always get those, or they only last for 24 hours. So, if you can, shoot me an email, like I said, or simply reach out to me at Joel Evan Coaching on Instagram. All right, let's talk about it, guys. How do we overcome food addiction, junk food addiction? Really, it's going to boil down to a couple things. Okay. And well, actually a lot of things, but let's talk about a couple of the big reasons and the big ideas of why we have become addicted to food. Okay. In the first place, the first one is this idea of dilution. Okay. The deal, as real food becomes more and more bland because of the flavoring, the artificial flavors, it loses its capacity to actually please us. We're less inclined to eat the food that we know that's nutritious and good for us. And often it blunts our nutrition because we're less inclined to eat the stuff that we know is good for us. And so we're not getting that variety, which we're going to talk about next. So one is our food is being diluted, okay, by big food. Okay. The second one is there's a false variety. We naturally crave variety in food, right? How often can you eat leftovers? Not very often, right? And it's one of nature's ways of really making sure that we get a diverse diet. Fake flavors make foods that are nutritionally very similar, but are very different than they actually are, right? And so we crave that variety, and that causes us to look and seek for different things and nutrients too, which we're going to get into in today's show. So there's a false variety of food. Okay. What's the other one? The third big idea is cognitive deception. Okay. Fake flavors, they fool us. They fool the conscious mind. A mother enticed by some strawberry blitz smoothie or an after school snack for an 8-year-old child, they will taste it and reasonably believe that it's going to produce, that it's a product that is going to contain strawberries. Even though it doesn't contain any strawberries, we know that. So you're getting faked out a lot. And actually, there's even some new science to suggest that sugars are doing this too. Sugars, some of these fake artificial sugars, which I actually talked about last week, discussing that, hey, these sugars are altering not only your microbiome, but they are tricking you into the body thinks it's going to receive calories, it's going to receive this sweetness, and then it doesn't. And the body's like, well, I'm still, you just gave me something that tasted like sugar. I'm going to wait till I get it. And it's not getting it. So it's going to continually look for it. Your brain is not stupid. We try to fool ourselves with all these fake sugars, but your brain knows. All right. The next big idea is emotional deception. There's two more that we're going to talk about. So it's emotional deception. There's one more. So flavor technology, right? It manipulates the part of your mind that experiences feelings. So these fake flavors, what they're doing is they establish for you like this baseline of like real food, right? And your brain like kind of makes a sticker for it, like kind of a placeholder, like says this is something. And usually like it's expecting like a large dose of calories. And so your brain, like I just mentioned, starts to create this heightened and nutritionally undeserved level of pleasure because it's expecting you to get all this good stuff. You're tricking it with all these fake artificial stuff. And that's great. Your body, your taste buds are getting it, but from a nutritional level, you're not getting it. And your body is like, what's going on? So there's these emotional urges that are coming into to play, right? And then the last big idea is flavor nutrient confusion. Okay. We were talking about this earlier, but by you hijacking these your flavor nutrient relationships, these fake flavors by their nature, they set up these false expectations. And so really a major aspect of obesity is an outsized desire for food, right? One that is very often you can't extinguish. I was just talking to a client about this idea of binge eating and the dopamine pathways being triggered, and you just can't get away from that. And these fake flavors are doing that. And they're tricking your brain into thinking that you're going to get these nutrients, and your brain is very intuitive and will seek out certain foods that give it what it needs. If it's missing phosphorus, it's going to look for foods that have more phosphorus. It's very intelligent in that. It understands that. And so many of the foods that we overconsume are like the refined carbs, high fructose corn syrup, sugar, added fat. None of these would be palatable without synthetic flavor. And what we end up doing is we gorge on them because they taste like something that they're not. So you're being deceived in many, many ways. These are the 5 top ways that I just mentioned. I'll just kind of review them: dilution, false variety, cognitive deception, emotional deception, and flavor nutrient confusion. Okay. Now, let's talk about some of the research here because some of you might be interested in learning a little bit more about that. So let's talk about it. In 2008, they had a research team that they used neuroimaging at the University of Oregon, and they wanted to see how these cravings affect people and using brain scans and fMRI scanners to measure the brain and see what's going on here. And they took a 19-year-old female, let's just call her Debbie, and they put Debbie and they showed her images of a chocolate milkshake for 2 seconds. And what they saw is that certain parts of her brain were being activated, and they saw blood being drawn into that area from the scan, the fMRI scans. And it showed that millions of these neurons are being fired, right? And the regions that were being triggered was the orbitofrontal cortex, the anterior cingulate cortex, and 3 other pockets of the brain that associate with gray matter. And this was all associated with what? Motivation. And the MRI lit those areas of the brain and showing that, hey, she's experiencing what they called incentive salience. And this is a scientific term for craving or wanting. Okay. Now, this student was overweight, guys. She had a BMI of 27.5. And when they interviewed her prior, she answered questions to the study such as, ask yourself this, if any of this is a trigger for you guys. I find it that when I start eating certain foods, I end up eating much more than I plan. Is that you? Are you this person? Do you resonate with this? She also said, I will eat to the point where I feel physically ill. Ask yourself if that could be you also. And then she said, I find myself continuing to consume certain foods that are, even though I'm no longer hungry, I keep eating them. So ask yourself, are you in this pocket? Because she answered yes to all of these. Now, not everyone believes that food can be addicting, like drugs. But guess what? It is. It's very addicting. And they had a second student, let's just call her Anna. She had a normal BMI of 23.8, and she rarely experienced any food cravings. And when they actually did her intake form, she didn't answer yes to any of those. It was very mild, right? And when they showed an image of a milkshake, the chocolate milkshake in front of her on her scan, it did show some excitement, but it was very little in contrast to the overweight person that we were talking about, Debbie. Sorry if anybody's name is Debbie out there. Nothing against Debbie. I'm not saying that Debbies are overweight or anything like that. Although there was a Debbie, what's that Debbie? Little Debbie's? Yeah, Little Debbie's. That's what I always think about when I think about Debbie. So even though there were obese people, so basically, even when obese people actually obtained the food they wanted, it didn't taste as good as they expected it. It failed to live up to their expectations. And so what they were doing is they continued to over consume and eat more. A further study looked at depression and weight loss. This is fascinating. So stay tuned for this because I'm talking about more about some brain imaging. And the study was called Neural Correlates of Food Addiction. And this was published in the archives of general psychiatry. And it proved just that our palates have become altered and junk food loses the ability to actually please people over time. And that real foods don't even stand a chance. And so what they did is they fed rats. Poor rats. They fed them junk food for over 40 days. These rats were living an amazing life. They were fat and happy and corpulent. They had absolutely no stress. They had the best life. But what they found is that they had, even though they had none of these stress, so what they did is they said, well, let's see how they're happy. Let's check out how happy they are. And so they started administering electric shocks to the rats. And every time that a shock was about to be delivered, a light would come on. And the light would basically let the rat know, hey, you're about to get shocked. Now, the rats are smart enough to know that I'm about to get shocked. Like they're going to notice a pattern. Light turns on. I'm about to get shocked. The interesting thing is the rats that were overweight, they didn't even tense up. They didn't even freeze. Now, here's the thing. They know this is happening. And the rats that were not obese and normal, quote unquote, normal rats, they would actually tense up. They would like kind of hug the cage. They knew the shock was coming. The food addicted rats didn't even do that. They were just apathetic to it. They were like, whatever. And they were willing to suffer through this unpleasant shock as long as they could just keep eating. This is the compulsive behavior that we're talking about when it comes to addiction, guys. And so I really want to stress to people, it's not your fault. Big food has altered your cravings. It's altered your dopamine pathways. It's altered everything. And so you really don't stand a chance. And so we're going to talk about the gateway out of this is to start eating real food. Stop eating these processed foods. I know they're everywhere. I know they're ubiquitous, but just stop. This is the only way out of it. And it's not your fault. Like I said, we have been manipulated and it just is what it is, but you do have a way out of it. They did another study and they were looking at that. They wanted to look more at the happiness of rats. And so they used some intracranial self-stimulation to measure this level of happiness. And at the beginning of the experience, the rats were happy. They were consuming cheesecake and bacon, very similar to the study I just mentioned, cheesy smoked sausage, Nutella, but it didn't last long for their happiness to wane. And eventually the rats became chronically unhappy. After several weeks of all this indulgent eating, their food didn't make them feel good anymore. They were gorging on all this rich food just to get back to a certain baseline. It just made them feel normal now. How many times have we felt that anybody that's been addicted to a drug or anything, smoking, anything, that you've altered dopamine pathways, and just to get to normal, it takes a certain hit, right? So it just simply, all it did is just dull their pain, and it became kind of this unpleasant existence. But the rats were miserable and fat. And so eating is a behavior, guys, that is driven by the expectation of pleasure. That's a power statement right there, okay? Hang on for this one. It's not the salt. It's not the sugar. It's not any of these class of nutrients. What we crave is flavors, and flavors are what makes food seem like real food. This is how it all is. When they first invented the Dorito, it was a complete flop. The Dorito, they did all the things that they knew. They knew salt, sugar, and they knew fat makes food pleasurable and that humans are going to really want this, and this is going to be great. It's going to be a bestseller. Nobody bought it. It was bland. They were like, it has all the components and from a nutritional standpoint, but it's not doing anything to make me really want this chip. And what they found is, how do we make this chip taste like a taco? And they invented taco flavoring. Lo and behold, the Dorito was born and it became an amazing bestseller. And here we are. So I want to finish up. We're almost at the 15-minute mark. So I'm going to finish up here, but I want to talk a little bit more about addiction and the epidemiology of it. Here's the thing. These fast food, what they know about addiction is that making it more available makes you more addicted. So think about the ubiquity of fast food chains and restaurants. They're everywhere. If you look at the Vietnam War, all these soldiers were fighting in the war. They were addicted to heroin, right? Because they were giving it to the troops out there. But guess what? When most of them, like 90% of them came home, they kicked their heroin addiction. Why? Because it wasn't available. And so think about that in your life when you're looking at creating these healthy habits. Make it less available. I know fast food's everywhere, but make it less available for you to be tempted by that. Part of the problem we know is there's a fast food truck on every darn corner, right? And so it can be really tough. Another thing I want to mention is they did the same thing with livestock, and they use these things called palatants. Palatants are simply food flavorings, right? And they add it to the feed. And why do they do it? Because they want these animals to overeat. And what they found is that the palatants created a flavor profile with these aromas and these sweetnesses that channeled the inner piglet or the inner calf, right, to eat more. And what they did is, this was a study done out of South Africa. They saw that the animals had an improved weight gain of 30% in lambs that were fed palatine versus the ones that weren't. So just like the Hershey syrup, which is laced with human palatine, vanillin and all these artificial flavors, these flavors are causing you to overeat. Okay. They use these flavors to stuff up our pigs and our animals. And they're doing the same thing to you. Okay. And this is what one expert neuroscientist, Susan Swithers, refers to as metabolic derangements. And this is when sweetness just loses its complete meaning, right? The body no longer regards it as a signal of impending calories, causing the rats to eat more and gain more weight. They're not getting the signal correctly. And if it isn't bad enough, they even found out a more recent study showing that high concentrations of these artificial sugars and sweeteners can actually encourage the formation of human fat cells. All right, last thing I want to tell you about is micronutrients. Our body has an intuitive sense. I mentioned this early on. It has an intuitive sense to get and eat food with certain nutrients that it needs, that it's missing. And we have a problem. We enrich and fortify all of our foods. Think about all the breads and stuff you eat. It's fortified with B vitamins. And we sprinkle all these little micronutrients all over food. So we have created this disincentive from eating good foods. Why would I ever eat a piece of broccoli when I can eat a bowl of Fruit Loops that is loaded with sugar and enriched with B vitamins? I might be low on thiamine and I might need that from that broccoli, but I'm not going to eat that. I just eat a bowl of Fruity Pebbles, right? The added B vitamins creates this stronger flavor presence from this sugary cereal, and it's giving children and even adults no incentive to actually go out and seek variety and seek new foods and seek foods that they can form an attachment with that naturally is rich in B vitamins. They'll just simply reach for the fortified white bread, right? All right, guys, I hope this was really helpful when we talk about food addiction, and you hopefully have some good ideas. Here's the key. At the end of the day, eat real food and do it for a long enough period of time. You probably need to do it for about a month. And if you can do that, you can reset dopamine pathways and really start to reset your cravings and reset your addiction profile. The biggest ways we have been farmed out by the big food is dilution, false variety, cognitive deception, emotional deception, and flavor nutrient confusion. Guys, I hope this was super helpful on this holiday week, this hump day week. Again, if you need any help from me, reach out to me, shoot me an email, info@joel11coaching, or shoot me a DM at joel11coaching. I'd love to connect with you there and learn more about you and find ways that I can help you. Have an amazing rest of your week. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing another live with my wife. We'll be talking about essential oils. And then Friday, a health hack Friday, some hacks to lead you into your weekend. Have an amazing week, guys. I'm out.